In this video, we're going to take a look at specifying redundant GNSS observations and how we do that inside of Traverse PC. Now, I'm working on this project that we showed in the GNSS sneak peek for multiple observations, and we're doing some additional work out on Lot 9. Now, we started back in March of this year, and I want to bring that data in so you can see how we brought the first set of data in. And then we'll bring the second set of data in and show the redundant observations. So I've got a setting in my survey under user definitions that says multiple GNSS observations, and it's currently set to point label match. Now I can come in here, and my GNSS receiver, my emlid flow, allows me to go back out and use the same point name the next time I shoot that point. So in Traverse PC, I'm going to have 2 points with the same point label. One of them is going to actually be the point. The other one is simply going to be an observation to it. And I can have any number of observations to that point that I want. Some of you may not have that capability. Some of you on your GNSS receiver or data collector may have to create a separate point, but relate it back to the original point somehow. And sometimes those data collectors do that by having the point label contain something. So the original point label, then a #1, #2. Sometimes there is a point label difference. We take the original point label and add 10,000 to it. And then you can also have a description that contains. And we do this for our calibration. So I've told Traverse PC I'm just going to do a straight point label match. So let's go ahead and import that data from last March. We're going to tell Traverse PC we're going to import emlid, and I'm going to turn on the details. I'm going to bring in both float and fixed points here. But this is where the point label match comes in again. We say when an imported point matches an existing point. Remember, we're saying that we're using the same point label again for redundant observations. What do? Well, we tell it we're going to match by point labels. That's how we tell it that it's a matching point, and we've already looked at this one. We're going to say, let's go ahead and use the existing point and don't update it. So we're not going to give this second set of GNSS observations to that point and update the coordinates. We're simply going to hold these as an observation. And that's what we're looking at today. So let's go ahead and do this first. Let's recall this first set of data. And there's our data we brought in back in March. Bring that data in and import it. And Traverse PC is creating all of these points for us. Here's the information right out of that data that we brought in. And then I want you to see that we also created a traverse for that. Here's the name of that file we brought in as the traverse name, and Traverse PC puts it in the imported group. Let's open that up, and Traverse PC knows it's an RTK traverse because of the data that's in it. So we'll just say yes. Go ahead and bring that up. And this is a new format that Traverse PC has. For RTK data, these points are now an RTK point type, just like they'd be a side shot or a foresight for terrestrial. It tells me that they're all fixed. There are no floats in here. And then it displays the appropriate associated data like the RMS values, the PDOP, the count, the sample size. And then Traverse PC has gone ahead and computed the northing, easting, and elevation based on our coordinate reference system. So it brought in the geodetic positions of those points and has now generated positions for those. So that's that first set of data. And we'll just leave that right up there. Now, we went out again and we said, now we're going to bring in that second data that we collected out there. And I'm going to leave these settings just the way they are. In fact, when the emlid settings first come up, this is how they are set. So if I don't change them, this is what I'm going to get automatically. And now let's browse to that second file that we had in there on 1024. And we used the localization on this, so the coordinates in the data collector were actually at 5,000, 5,000, same as our original survey. But we still have the geodetic positions, which is what we're going to use in this import. So now let's go ahead and import those. And Traverse PC is going to do a couple of things. One, in the report, it's going to tell us it found the existing point. So for every one of those points, it says, hey, I found existing points because the point label matched. We're going to keep the existing survey point, And then this data that's brought in is going to be brought in as an observation. Then Traverse PC is going to say, hey, you know what? You just brought in 5 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that already had GNSS data in the survey. That's that first traverse that we brought in. And if you want now, you can go ahead and update the survey points with your computed averages, or you can export a CSV file of that information, or you can report it, or I can go in and identify outliers and simply remove them. I can say that's an outlier there. I'm going to turn that off so it never gets included in the averaging of this point here. So really, really slick. I'm going to slip past this really quick just by closing it. I'm going to close this out. Here's our reports. This is already the message view for me to print out or save. It saves automatically when I save the survey. But I want to go into that second traverse now and open it up. So it also is an RTK traverse, and it has the same data displayed, but this is now an observation. So if I take a look at G761 in both of these, I see they have the same set of coordinates. So the northing ends in 0.315, the easting ends in 0.036. That's because this is an observation that's just holding the data. It's not computing the position for G761. There can only ever be one position for G761. However, in any of these traverses that hold raw GNSS observations, I can display raw data. So now Traverse PC says, based on this raw observation, this is what the coordinates would have been for this point, northing and easting. And they don't match the coordinates that it currently holds from the first observation. So this is why I now can come in and average these, because I've got two separate positions, and when I average them, I get the average position of those two. And if you go to our help topics, and we will in another video, and take a look at averaging, the NGS says, yeah, this is how you improve accuracies with GNSS observations. And we can take any number of additional observations and get a better average if that's what we would choose to do. View, and turn display raw data off. And now we're back to the 315. I wanted to show you these two traverses because I want to go back to the GNSS averages tool. And again, we can say, how am I going to relate the points? And I'm going to tell it I want to do this entire Lot 9 localization that we did in October. And I want to say if the point labels match, that's how we specify the observations. And we're going to be back at that same exact table here now. And watch what happens when I tell Traverse PC to update the survey points with the computed averages. Here I see my differences between each observation and the computed average. I'm going to update these so I get those averages copied over into the survey point. And now look what happens here. For my G761, the decimals for that northing are now 372, 372, 372, just like they are up here. For the easting, it's 026, 026, 026. So anytime I want, I can go into any of the points that I've averaged, and I can tell Traverse PC to compute those averages and update the points. Okay, so I just wanted you to see how we specify that G761 is an additional GNSS observation for the existing point G761 in the survey. And I can go out and I can observe G761 any number of times, and every one of those will show up as an additional observation that I can use to create a more accurate average position for that point and other points that have multiple observations.